To make that transition is to avoid activities that stimulate the lower mind. Our mind, our consciousness is very complex. You can divide your consciousness into 3 levels. One is a simple consciousness, and that is sense-based perception. And that's something that we have in common with animals. Being immersed in our sensations without awareness, that is simple consciousness. You just react because of survival of the fittest. Right? So that's something that we share with animals. And it is passive growth through normal biological evolution. For example, when a species evolves, that's biological evolution, and as the species comes up that food chain, it can be more secure. Like humans, we're at the top of the food chain, so we don't have to worry about being eaten unless we're being careless. But we're at the top of the food chain because we have evolved there. So we don't have to do much in terms of protecting ourselves. That simple consciousness in that normal biological evolution will help us to grow. Then that passive growth is like from savagery to civilization. But at some point, that growth, that evolution will stop because it can only take us so far. You can grow, but it is very limited at some point. In fact, it may stop growing. It's like a child growing up. But as you reach your adulthood, if you don't study, you don't put in the effort, then it stops growing. So that's simple consciousness, that level. In order to go beyond that level, you need to have this conscious effort in wanting to grow. And that is self-consciousness, the awareness of wanting to develop into an individual. We are individual and no longer with a group. And this individual is important because it stands out from the group. We are no longer just a unit in the mass, but we are now an individual. This requires that you know who you are and what you want. Let's say you have a good cause and you want to pursue, but everybody is telling you that don't be foolish, don't be putting your time in such effort because it's meaningless. But you feel deep in your heart that it's something to pursue and you see your purpose. When you feel deep in your heart that it's meaningful, then you will have this self-consciousness. You are becoming an individual and not just a unit in the mass. Does it make sense? But that's not good enough because it's still very limiting. The next level of consciousness is transcendental consciousness, where you start to see the world how it really is, and to see the conditioned existence, and to rise above it. And this is called the higher evolution. And the higher evolution is a formidable proposition, and it will require all of our energy to pursue it. Physical, your mental, your spiritual energies. So what I'm trying to say here is that we want to avoid activities that stimulate the lower level consciousness. We want to involve ourselves with the higher level consciousness, the transcendental consciousness. We want to develop the transcendental consciousness rather than reinforcing the animalistic and simple consciousness. When the practitioner thinks that he can devote an hour or two here and there a week, and that will be sufficient, and when he's not so engaged, he will be free to spend his time in competitive games with a trashy novel or under hypnotic influence of the latest popular film, then he will be making a mistake. Right? Because we're just fooling ourselves because we spend more time stimulating the lower level consciousness. So how can we expect to have the strength to have any kind of motivation towards the higher level transcendental consciousness?